Welcome. Good to have you here. I'm excited to talk with you. I know our mutual friend Rachel connected us, which was awesome.
She
So
did.
yeah, nice to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, it's always great to be introduced from someone else. Sometimes that sets a more inviting connection. We talk
Yeah.
about things quicker. We get to things quicker than we normally would if we are sort of meeting cold. So I love that.
Yeah.
And having this conversation is just going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I've always found with those mutual connections, like that singular person, they know both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're willing to say, hey, y'all have to meet for some reason, most of the time they hit. It's not 100% hit rate, but most of the time the introductions are really solid. At least I found. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're the same way.
Yes, I have. I have had the same experience. Not everyone's willing to share their friends.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's jump in here. I love what you're doing because like I always think growing up like I had to learn emotional intelligence and I had great EQ and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff and I'm sure I'm lacking in many areas as well and I'm sure most of us even listening in like there's areas we can improve on that. So this is a topic that's really relevant and important to me, especially as I raise a teenager trying to figure out like how to make sure he has the right techniques and stuff. So let's start here just so people kind of get to know you a little bit. Like give me a quick overview of like who you work with, what do you do on a day-to-day basis that might level set for people listening in and what they're going to get out of the conversation.
It's interesting how like a title or a description really helps people go like, oh, okay, that's what that person talks about or does or has
Mhm.
experience and expertise in, right? So I do executive leadership coaching. I love the intersection of emotional intelligence and leadership excellence. There's just so much to talk about and learn and do in that space. So it becomes a really warm environment because the human has to show up in that space. We can't just be the leader with the title and the power and the authority. So I work with SVPs, CEOs, mid-level leaders. To me, it does not matter what their title is or how much experience they have. The insertion point of who I work with is someone who's willing to do the work because not everyone
Yeah.
is willing to develop their EI.
Yeah. And don't leave out. I know you're cropped in. You have a lot of medals because you're a very accomplished athlete
Mm.
and runner.
Mm. Yeah, it is an identifier for me, like a
Yeah.
runner, athlete. It's something I've probably called myself for a number of years, and I love the competitive space. More so, I'm competing against my own self. Even when I play a team sport, it's always
Yeah.
about me getting better and taking feedback and really tapping into my talents. I know that that's the space I feel the best in when I'm like giving it everything I have,
Mm.
and also taking on feedback so I can grow and develop. Like, I don't want to leave anything on the table. When all is said and done, like deathbed, all is said and done, I don't want to have left anything on the table and said, I wish I would have tried harder when I was 15. Like, screw that. Who wants to have that kind of an experience?
Mm.
So basically, I I love the identifiers. They don't bother me calling myself an athlete. It doesn't bother me to like call myself a wife, a mother, whatever. These are all sort of labels that also help us, I think, to tap into like what's the best I can be in this
Yeah.
particular role that I'm playing.
Yeah. Had you always had that like that fire to like again, I want to be the best athlete person, whatever, or is that
Mm.
something you built over time or maybe someone helped you with? I don't know.
My older sister describes me as coming like into the world pretty established, and by that she generally means like you had a sense of self from a really young age. And I
Mm.
don't have a lot of memory from a long age, but I have a lot of feeling from a young age. And I do have that sense of, yeah, I came into the world pretty grounded in understanding who I am. And so sometimes I had to fight
Mm.
for that space, for that self-awareness or knowing who I was, or fighting against sort of biases or someone else's thoughts of what I should or shouldn't be.
Mm. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting though when you ask other people, like because I think our
Mm-hmm.
perspective is so unique in our own way, but then when you ask other people, like, hey, what defines me, or what's one word when you think about me? It's funny how it's not always exactly the same, and they see things that we don't necessarily see in ourselves.
No, that's true. I really love like Simon Sinek's work on like discover your why, but how he encourages us to actually engage our friends and family members when we're trying to seek out like
Hmm.
what is it that I leave when I'm with you as an individual and I walk away from you, what is it that I leave you with that
Yeah.
is the definer for how you would describe me? And more often than not, I think when we ask the right kind of question, people will start to reply with something that is similar in thread. But if we just ask them this generic question of like, how would you define me? Then everyone's going to have a different definition for that.
Yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of definitions, so let's. I want to start off here before we go on a random tangent with other stuff. I'm assuming, because I asked you this when we caught up before about the difference between emotional intelligence, emotion. What EQ is like quotient, right? Isn't that the Q stands
Yes.
for? So like things that I think we take for granted, we assume what they mean. So at the base level, can you give some of those definitions so people are kind of on the same page with what those terms mean?
Emotional intelligence is more of our umbrella term. So when we think of the research and the books that are written, more often we're going to see the phrase emotional intelligence to define it. And emotion quotient are the assessments that will measure our proficiency in emotional intelligence. So it doesn't really matter which assessment you're taking. I practice the EQI 2.0 model, and emotion quotient would be a proficiency measurement around how strong is your self awareness, how strong is your empathy, how strong is your assertiveness, like how proficient is your actual skill set when
Hmm.
it's stress tested. So that's the difference between the two. One is a measurement, and one is the umbrella term of the practice itself.
Is there the same thing on the IQ side?
IQ does have an assessment,
Yeah. Well, like because
right?
there's emotional
Mm,
intelligence and then the emotional what's quotient. Is that what it is?
hmm.
Is
Yeah,
it because it's intellectual quotient? Isn't that what
right,
IQ, right? But is there
right.
something? Is there an umbrella above that, or I don't know?
Well, there are intelligences, and emotional intelligence would be one of our intelligences. So we have like a kinesthetic intelligence, musical intelligence, math intelligence, spatial awareness intelligence. Like we have all of these intelligences. And so, like,
Oh,
IQ is a measurement of particular what math, language. I can't remember the things that IQ all tests. It doesn't test all of our intelligences. Like it doesn't test our EQ.
okay, yeah.
So that's a different assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I've
Mm-hmm.
never
It is
went down the rabbit
interesting.
hole. Yeah, I've never went down the rabbit hole of that. And
Mm-hmm.
well, because people always talk, I think IQ always got the love. That was like the big thing
Oh, yeah.
back in the day. Like EQ is a new kind of phenomenon, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like.
IQ still gets most of the love.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, right from the get go. Like you think about our experience with school, how
Yeah.
we're raised, we sort of funnel into this experience where we all start to go to school. And then in order to stack rank
Yeah.
or measure a comparative, should I be moving from kindergarten to grade one to grade two to grade three? There are these metrics that say,
Yeah.
yes, you
True.
can, no, you can't. And so we're exposed to IQ comparison and pressure from a pretty young age.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is true. I guess it is. Again, looking at it just from having a teenager, like it's always like, did you get this grade? How smart are you, quote unquote, right? That's kind of the thing. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
a can you, which I'm trying to do with him, which helped me when I was preparing for this because there's a couple things that you've done in your work I was like thinking about. But yeah, it always seems like it's a we don't talk about the social awareness stuff, the things that like are you picking up on cues from people, like things that are really important. They do fall
Yes,
by the wayside a little bit.
that's true. And also, they are on our report cards. Like with my son's report cards, he's 20, so had a lot of report cards. There's the open section where the teacher writes comments about how the student shows up with his classmates
Hmm.
and how he participates in class. And that is kind of a description, if the teacher's doing it well, of some of their emotional intelligence skills. Like it's letting you know how they get on with other people. And
Yeah.
that's a component of our emotional intelligence. We're just not using it that way. And it would be an exceptional way to use it.
Yeah.
And that's part of our sort of social problem as we go from school being IQ measured to workplace and a lot of attention given to EQ measurement, but we're not talking about it, sort of an invisible thing that's happening. We didn't learn it in school. We're not talking about it as a set of skills that we're going to measure you against. But when an employer is giving feedback to their employee,
Mm.
more often than not, the feedback they're giving them is around EQ skill set, not IQ skill set.
Yeah, interesting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what's this? You have this equation here: IQ plus EQ equals TQ, right? Tell me
Yes.
about that.
So I've just seen over and over my own experience personally, and then I see over and over again as I engage with other people in their own emotional intelligence development that people are generally smart. Like their IQ is set. By the time you're 19, you're not gaining aptitude in your IQ anymore. It doesn't mean you can't learn new things. It just means your aptitude for learning is pretty much set.
Hmm.
But EQ is learnable throughout your life because they're a set of skills. You learn them simply by practicing them. So your aptitude is based on how much you want to invest practicing. Like, for example, if I wanted to be a great basketball player, I will have a cap in ability to be
Hmm.
a basketball player. But if I work really hard, practice really hard, it's like growth mindset, I can become a decent basketball player.
Yeah.
So EQ skills, because they're learnable based on habits, when we develop them and add them to our IQ, our whole talent quotient, TQ is also happens to be my initials, our whole talent, like our ability to really tap into all that we can be, just it goes through the roof. So much so that the differentiator between people with equal IQ, the person with a higher EQ, has a 68% performance gap improvement. Like that's a huge performance
Mm.
gap
Yeah.
improvement just by elevating your EQ skill set.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, to what we were talking about earlier, I guess IQ is so heavily like pronounced that you think like, oh, if I'm smart, because I remember even as a young kid, like you're always like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what's your IQ? Like, oh, you're smarter, but then you realize like it's not. I kind of it's always like the street smarts versus book smarts when I'm thinking
True.
about it, right? It's like the street smarts are the people that have the EQ. Book smarts, you might be smart, like quote unquote, and
Mm.
intelligent, but tell me if I'm wrong in this. I feel like the street smarts is like, again, I understand how to have conversations. I understand how people like when people are sad, I can pick up on that. I can, not just things of that nature. It seems like that's more of a street smart thing.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about, what you're bringing to the table is like application. So you can be totally book smart
Hmm.
and not be able to apply it in real time. You can regurgitate it, you can explain it to me, you can
Yeah.
answer questions about it and get 100%. But when a real time situation comes up, you might not be able to take what you learn from the book and put it into real time application. This happens in the workplace all the time. Someone graduates top of their class and they're a shit lawyer or a shit
Yeah.
teacher. Like they just can't apply it into real time. So EQ, it's going to help with accessing IQ.
Hmm.
That's part of how the brain is structured. When you're better capable of managing your emotions, you can tap into rational, logical thinking, your prefrontal cortex, executive functioning, a lot better than if your emotions are left unattended. They're going to get in the way of that. Socially, emotional intelligence helps you to soften emotional climate. So you're actually a great influencer for everyone to be tapping into their IQ at a more productive, effective way.
Hmm.
If you can soften the emotional climate for everyone, including yourself, which people who have EQ are generally capable of doing.
Hmm. Okay, we're gonna get into that a lot more. Let's because I feel like we can really go hard in this topic. I want to make
We
sure
can.
I'm not gonna let you miss out on rapid fire. All right,
Okay.
so we're gonna take a pause on the EQ, although it can come up in questions. Who knows? We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Number one: what's something you wish more people understood about starting?
I think probably the most important thing would be to not wait for the motivation, like the feeling. You're right, EQ is going to come up.
There you go.
a lot of people a lot of people want like I'm gonna wait till Monday because Monday I'm gonna feel like doing it, right?
Right.
And oftentimes in the I'm gonna start when the feeling is right, when the moment is right. And when people use that phrasing, that's generally what they're referring to. It's not a lineup of like A, B, and C needs to happen and then I can do it. Most often it's this emotional state of like
Mm.
I'm motivated, I'm ready, I'm prepared. And yet sometimes that isn't going to happen. And so we can be stuck in the procrastination mode for a really long time, waiting to feel like it.
Yeah.
And the easiest thing to do is just when you have decisiveness around, I would like to do X, is like, well, take the first step right then because you have momentum.
Hmm.
And people can just tap into, oh, I have, this is what momentum is, and tap into the momentum, then the feelings that they're looking for will come with action.
Hmm. So momentum over motivation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. All right. Number 2. How do you personally define enough when it comes to success?
I think that enough is equal to self regard, self worth, self esteem. I think that I define enough to be a satisfaction or contentment around input over outcome.
Hmm.
What's in my control is always what I bring to the table, how I approach it, what I put into whatever it is I'm going after. What is outside of my control are all the variables that might impact an outcome occurring or not occurring.
Yeah.
So enough for me is the attention to did I show up?
How does that look in your, like, when you're building a business or you're doing, like, do you have certain metrics you're trying to, or like, do you know personally, like, once you hit a benchmark, you're good? Because I always feel like, again, especially someone like yourself, an athlete, like I'm similar. It's like, I want to get better. I want to keep pushing. It's like, oh, I passed that milestone. Let me do another one. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you tamp that down a little bit to make sure you don't overexert in the wrong areas?
The skill of reality testing is incredibly important in what we're talking about right now because it balances overstretching or getting ahead of what's actually possible for us to achieve within our capacities. So, reality testing is just being objective about what's really going on. So, I think, like as an athlete, if I could just use the analogy of a marathon, I go into every race with three benchmarks,
Okay.
not one benchmark, like not a minimum. I go with three benchmarks. So my minimum benchmark is I'm crossing the finish line. It doesn't matter how I have to do it, I'm getting across it. So it's kind of like run when I can, walk when I want, crawl if I must.
Okay. All right.
That's how I'm
All right.
getting across the finish
Okay.
line. Second is a time goal. So I have a time goal that I would like to achieve, and that is based objectively on the type of training I've had and how I'm feeling physically.
Mhm.
And then the third goal is to hit a personal best. And that is just like when the cards line up that day, the cards line up that day. A personal best is often outside of my control, even if I've had a great training program, because sometimes I'm just not feeling it that day.
Hmm.
So any one of those three is a successful outcome for me.
Hmm. And it's the same 3 every race, or do you
Every
change?
race.
Okay.
Now, the time goal might change,
Yeah.
or
Right.
the
Right.
personal best might have to change, right?
Right.
Based on previous races, but those are the three levels and I can
And,
control all three of them.
and so then my assumption is then when you get to the finish line and you assess, you don't beat yourself up for not getting a personal best. You're like, hey, today was a cross the finish line day. No big deal.
That's right. Yep, that's
Okay.
right. Same in business. So same in business. It's like I do have like a minimum amount of money I want to make in the year to like
Yeah.
cover expenses and one vacation in the year. Like I got this minimum benchmark. Anything after that is like that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't usually stress out about a lot of things, but that's less about goal setting, more about self belief.
Okay. Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. I like that. All right. Here we go. Number 3. Who's someone you admire for their ability to take action?
I guess my husband.
Tell me about that.
My husband recently retired at 48. It's a pretty young age to be retiring at. And he did so because he wanted to like get out of the corporate rat race and sitting at a desk, and he had all of these ideals about what he would like to do with his retirement time. And I'd never seen him do most of them before that. So
Yeah.
part of me was like, this will be interesting. And he's like done all it's not even like he had a checklist to go like check, 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 done all of these things. And yet he's done all of them. Like he started microgreening, he makes sourdoughs, he's done bike packing, he's gone,
Oh.
he's doing like a trip across the country, he's gone like he's done all of the things he wanted to do. And why I admire it from him is because he also struggles with actually like investing in himself, like the follow through part. Sometimes
Hmm.
he will struggle with doing it, and he's just like, I'm not. I'm just gonna go for it. Gonna do all of it. So it's been admirable to watch him do that in the last 2 years.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
let me ask. 'Cause that you got me curious. 48 retires. Like, so was the decision purely just like I'm tired of corporate, or did he do well enough where it's like, all right, I can walk away. Why wait another 10 years or whatever? Let's just do it
Mm,
now.
yeah.
Was that the approach?
Well, we're partners, so like we did well enough.
Oh, okay. Well, true. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. The team.
Yeah, we are a team. Um, we've done well enough so he could. Either of
Yeah.
us could if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to yet. I could. I'm not ready to yet. I still want to work, still love what I'm doing. So yeah, part of it is that we have the freedom of choice.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's important. I mean, I think about that with my wife. I just got married at the end of August, and like we have to try to have those discussions as a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of like, yeah, what's this map out to look like, and how do we want to do it? And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm assuming you'll say is just being supportive, right? Is
Yeah.
what do each individual want to do? How does that the whole equals the sum of its parts kind of thing, and make sure you lean into that.
Yeah, just like when I decided to leave my corporate job and start my own business, like there's no guaranteed check every 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that kind of support comes naturally to both of us. We've been together for a really long time as well. We've always been very supportive of each other's goals and what we would like to do. I mean, that's part of our agreement is that we have to be happy individuals. And so sometimes we have individual goals that we want to achieve that are part of our happiness quotient. And so we go after these things independently, but we also have a united goal of we want to have freedom to be able to make choices. And
Hmm.
often that means you need a financial platform
Right.
that will allow that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, we individually started that. And then when we came together, it was an agreement that we both had. But because it was foundational as individuals, it wasn't hard to come up with that as partners either.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
super. It's so important. So that's awesome. So glad your husband's out there doing his
Doing
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Number, what do we got? 4 here, I think. We're
4.
moving along. All right. What's one operating system or ritual you couldn't run your company without?
Oh my gosh.
These are next level, Teresa. We go next
That
level.
is next level. But I'm also thinking, like, do I even it's funny because I know from the outside, if I ask someone this question, they would be able to tell me what that is. But from
Yeah.
the inside, I'm like, what is the thing I wouldn't be able to run my company without? Okay, I'm going to go with this. I am uh, picky,
Okay.
decisive. Either word will work
Okay.
about how I want to engage with my clients. I'm super high touch. So I don't use like scheduling links.
Okay.
It's kind of like what I don't do.
Okay.
I don't use scheduling links. I don't have a virtual assistant. Like it's me. When you work
Mhm.
with me, you work with me. So when you're emailing Teresa at iqeqtq.com, like it's coming to me and I'm answering the email. When I'm scheduling sessions, I'm like, here's my calendar and when I'm available. And I'm like sending an email of dates and time options when I'm
Okay. All
available.
right.
They're not looking in my calendar to be able to say, I want this one, this one, this one. Or so yeah, I think that a key to how I operate is everything is very high touch. And that part of it is a key part of the vulnerability that shows up in coaching sessions.
Hmm.
Is people just know that it's just me. There's no AI companion recording in my client sessions.
Yeah.
Like none of that is happening, right? And I think that that is such an important component of how to operate successfully for me, because the climate of the space that we're talking in has to be so trusting
Hmm.
in order to actually talk about the things that need to be talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your operating system. It's
I'm a stripped down operating
someone
system.
would call that old school, right? It's
I do call it old
like,
school. Yes.
hey, if it works for you, I mean, All right, last one here. Do you plan your year out and or take a different approach to goal setting? Now we talked that this came up a little bit, I guess, with the marathon, but how do you think about it in your business?
I am more in maintenance. Like, I can see in the path of my career that there were many years that I did, looking at a year out, 3 years out, 5 years out. And when you're in corporate as well, like, that's a demand. You have to be strategically planning and thinking about how you're moving all of the pieces, playing chess, not checkers. And that was also a demand in the roles that I lived in, was like, what is the goal?
Hmm.
What is the goal 3 years out, 5 years out? How's this department evolving, so on and so forth? And so I did that for so many years that when I started my business, I did have 1, 3, 5 year goals. Now I'm 7 years in, and over 7 years, I've really understood the rhythm
Hmm.
of how my business works and how I operate within it. And I'm more from a maintenance standpoint now, kind of like my physical goals. I'm not looking to gain more muscle mass or get faster,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so my business is the same way. It's not that I don't think about this year, what would I like to achieve and who would I like to work with? And maybe there's some things or areas I'd like to explore. Like last year, I decided this year I'd like to do a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And so that was a goal for this year that I thought about last year. The year before, I thought about, I think I'd like to work with a marketing company and hone in on X, Y, and Z. And so I executed on that. And each year, I do have an annual goal of something that I want to sort of bump the business part of it. And one is usually it. Like every year, there's one thing that I want to stretch around the business. And then I do that. And then I spend the majority of my time with my clients.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not in this phase of like massive needing to grow and build and build and build a bit and scale, because I'm not doing that. I
Yeah.
have no plans to hire other people, and no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not in that space.
Yeah. I'm the same way. That you talk to enough people, everyone wants you to scale, or they're asking like,
Yeah.
when are you going to scale the business? And it's like, why? What's the point?
Yeah. Some people want to scale and they have a scalable business. I'm just not in that pod.
Yeah,
It's cool.
absolutely. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in your camp. I'm in the high touch
Mm-hmm.
camp. So I agree with you. That's actually maybe a good transition out of the rapid fire, because, for someone, so, I do sales coaching. So for someone like me, it's sort of, I'll use the word easy, of like someone to be like, we're not hitting revenue. My reps aren't producing, insert whatever, right? The pipeline's unpredictable. I'm nervous on phone calls, like all these different things of like why people would be like, oh my God, I need help in sales.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know when they need help with their emotional intelligence? Like, what are things they should be picking up on, maybe cues for them to trigger, I need help in this area?
Sometimes it is the individual that's recognizing it, and then they're reaching out and they're saying, hey, look, I'm struggling with balance, meaning my family life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because I'm spending so much time at work, but work also isn't great.
Yeah.
And so they're recognizing that. Sometimes it's, the HR, the chief HR officer is coming and saying, I need you to work with a few people on performance improvement plans around their behaviors, because they socially do not engage with their peers very well. They're
Okay.
argumentative. They cause a lot of conflict and disagreement, and we need you to work with them on those social skills. To which I always respond, are they aware and willing? Because
Right.
I'm not here to force anyone to do something, right? When we think about just sort of looking inward and asking ourselves the questions, how would I know that emotional intelligence is for me? It's a unanimous echoing answer across the planet. Yes, everyone needs the skills. Everyone can work on them. Everyone can continue to develop them, including me. Like I keep working on my emotional intelligence skills every day because I'm a human being. I engage with other people. I have emotions.
Right.
And so I'm also always working on practicing them, looking for life will give me opportunities regularly to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that I am working on my emotional intelligence skills. A key signal is, what triggers you into emotional reactivity. Because a lack of emotional intelligence isn't that I'm emotional. A lack of emotional intelligence is that one, maybe I'm not even aware I'm emotional. Two, I might compartmentalize or oppress or suppress certain emotions. I don't allow myself to feel certain things.
Right.
Three, when I am triggered, I have these really big reactions. And that's not just to things that make me angry or that I create anger around. And then I have these sort of violent, aggressive type responses, but also like silent, quiet, withdrawing type responses. Like if I'm exhausted and I withdraw from conversations or withdraw from people, that could
Mm.
be a toxic behavior of not handling that type of emotion appropriately.
Mm.
But also, I've been in workplaces where people get so excited they can disrupt an entire meeting. And you're just like, that is not good emotion management, even though the emotion is pleasant. It's not a good management of your emotion, and you're disrupting the environment.
Mm.
So, like, thinking about how would I know if EI is good for me, those are just a few examples of people probably listening and going, oh, I hadn't thought that mismanagement of excitement could be an indicator of a lack of emotional intelligence. Like, yeah, because
Yeah.
we only think about it from the perspective of, I didn't handle this negative emotion well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Oh, I even look at that thinking back to like my corporate career. God, I get jacked up sometimes and
Right.
excited in meetings. Maybe I had some poor emotional intelligence at those times. You're calling me out.
Well,
Um,
just think about how impulsive you could be in excitement because the energy of excitement is so big that it would be hard to not take the temptation of that emotion to decide this is our plan, this is what we're going to do. And like you're so optimistic and so positive that you might fail to think about those things that could actually be disruptive to success and you don't plan for them. So when
yeah,
you hit them, you're like, what the hell happened? Like, well, why
yeah,
didn't you think about those things beforehand? I was too
Well,
excited to just get started.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I feel like I have, especially around like ideas and like to we were talking about it earlier, even like, oh, I'm going to do this event or something like jacked up is probably the best way
Mm.
to say it sometimes. But yeah, there's now I'm realizing by just you saying that, like, man, maybe there's some work there potentially to so do you tap that down, or do you just recognize like in that moment to maybe ask more questions? Like what's kind of an approach you could take?
This is a great question, Brian, because here's the thing. That is often what people will do is they'll recognize like, oh, I just swung way up here and I need to dial it back down. You're like, no, 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 no. You just need to bring another skill with you. So when we swing momentum and positivity, we have to bring reality testing with us.
Hmm.
So optimism and reality testing are two skills in emotional intelligence. They're powerful partners to each other. So if I'm really optimistic and positive and I'm doing an inventory around all of the resources, talents, experiences, intelligence that we possess as individuals or as a collective team, and we do this optimism inventory and we're like, yes, let's go. Someone in that room needs to go, hang on, before we move on this plan, let's just think about all the things that could be barriers or obstacles that we want to plan for and have ready to execute on should they show up. And it doesn't temper excitement, it just grounds us in objectivity. And
Okay.
that helps us to move forward smarter. This is where EQ makes our IQ go up.
Okay. Now,
Mhm.
now is that someone's? So is that like you're in a? Let's say you're in a room and there's dozen people in the company or in this department, or whatever. Is that someone's kind of cue card they have in a meeting if that happens, or is that just in everyone's playbook? Hey, we have to make sure we ask this question before we end the meeting. Like how does that show up?
When you're developing a team of people, when you're developing an organization for emotional intelligence, I do like to build in processes that help them remember when to use their skills. So we
Mhm.
teach the skills and then you build in reminders of how to use those skills and when to use them. So in meetings, when they use a templated meeting sheet, you'd
Yeah.
want to put the signal right on the sheet to go like, hey, when you're starting to think about how we're moving forward, remember also ask this question so you're moving forward balanced.
Hmm.
Yeah. So some people will integrate it automatically. Like they'll just integrate it after practice, 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 practice. It's just part of how they then operate. So they don't need the prompt, but a lot of people will need the prompt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, because now as we're talking, I'm like, okay, Brian, what have you done? What are all the different ways that, even though again, that I think that's the problem sometimes. Like I said, I thought, oh, I have a lot of emotional intelligence, or I feel this, the EQ kind of thing. I feel like I got that like really well through a lot of, whatever, a lot of bad things probably as childhood that have helped me. But
Mm.
I bet there's like to your point, I bet there's areas where I think I'm doing well, but actually I'm overexerting. Maybe I'm over indexing in the wrong way, in the positive, when I
Mm.
could be looking at it different, So that, I mean, that's just something I've learned today is I think a lot of, and maybe a lot of folks listening in, like I always think of it on the negative.
Right.
You don't have the social awareness, right? You can't pick up cues and stuff, but instead it can also be on you have too much. You're too out there.
So and also, so yes, you could be swinging in either of these directions, and so it's a bit of an unbalanced experience that you're having or creating, contributing
Right.
to. It's also, I think there's a perhaps a limited view as to what emotional intelligence actually is as far as skills.
Hmm.
So sometimes we stop the definition as it's my ability to understand my own emotions and my emotion creation and like pick up when I am emotional and how to manage those emotions or regulate them, and also my ability to see socially emotions occurring and use empathy to assist with understanding how other people are feeling. Like, if that's where we stop in our description, we only have two skills. We've
Hmm.
only mentioned two. There's 15 skills. What about the other 13 skills?
I don't know. What about them?
Exactly. Exactly, right? And so the sometimes the first thing is just opening our awareness to like, oh, there, I think emotional intelligence is this. My view of it is actually just narrow. It's a narrow view. It's incomplete.
Hmm.
This is what emotional intelligence is. It includes all of these other kinds of skills. I'm not using half of those skills. I'm not even paying attention to half of those skills, which is why then we will notice, we will have experiences and go, why do I still struggle in this experience over here with this person? I don't struggle the same sort of context over here with this person. What's going on? Well, there's a missing EI skill over here that you're not using.
Hmm.
And a lot of people can't identify what that skill is on their own.
What? So if we had a test right now, if you quiz me on those 15, I might be able to guess them. I have no idea if they're right or not. You tell me. But let's just cut to the chase. What are like two or three that folks commonly miss? They don't think about it all.
Independence. That's a big one that people don't think about at all. And I'm going to define it.
Please.
So, independence is our ability to be self directed, to be autonomous in how we go about completing our work. That's one part of the definition. The other part is independence. It is a self expression skill. It's our ability to be free from emotional dependency. So, for example, when you're feeling disappointed about the fact that I'm not giving you a raise,
Hmm.
I don't allow your disappointment to change my decision.
Hmm.
And I can be independent from your emotional experience and also not want to fix or solve how you're feeling. That I let you feel how you're feeling.
Okay. So
That's
it's
a
not
huge one that
influencing.
people
So it's
miss.
not influencing,
That's
basically.
right. Your emotions will not influence my IQ.
It's kind of like, I don't know why this it came up, maybe just because everything's related to dating, but like in like the dating days of Brian, like, you're like gonna break up with someone or whatever, and then they like have some sob story or something, and they okay, let's keep doing this or whatever, instead of just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is, like, is that kind of a am I thinking the same light? Is that a similar scenario?
Yeah, because you could probably see, like, in that situation, the person has this story for you, and you could see the other person, like, willing to move from their position.
Yeah.
because
Okay.
of how the other person feels. They don't feel comfortable in the other person's emotions. And so rather than holding their ground, their knees get weak and they yield their position
Hmm.
in order to get away from the emotional discomfort. But
Yes.
independence is being able to stay in the emotional discomfort that someone else is experiencing without taking it on.
Oh, okay. I love that. All right. Independence. We got that.
That's one big one. And the second big one that I is flexibility. So, and that's in our stress management realm.
Okay.
And there's a couple of components to flexibility that are really important because it's the ability to adapt your emotions, change how you're feeling.
Hmm.
But to change how we're feeling, we have to change what we're thinking. We have to change our belief system, what underpins our emotion creation. So I create all of my emotions from the inside out. Something might happen outside of me, but I give it meaning. I start thinking about what this thing means. My brain starts predicting how I'm supposed to feel in this situation. And I start to create an emotion. My body gets prepared to react in a certain way. Like this all happens so fast.
Yeah.
And flexibility is it's an ability, but it's also a willingness to somewhere in how fast that emotion creation happens to go, hang on a second. Do I actually need to be creating this emotion? Like the last 2,000 times in my life, in this moment, I've chosen anger. I'm just going to pause for a second and be like, do I need to create anger
Hmm.
again? And so we think about how challenging this emotion could be because, in part, you're quieting your ego that wants to go to anger
Yeah.
and be right
Yeah.
about being angry, not about the situation, but I want to be justified
Yes.
that this emotion creation is valid. And part of stress management, because anger feels negative in our body, it's also alerting us. Like negative alerts in our body is like, hey, what's going on? It's an inward signal. When I feel anger or any negative emotion, unpleasant emotion, there should be an internal eye that goes inward and goes like, what are you doing? Why are you creating that unpleasant emotion? What's happening here? Why are you taking it personally? Why are you creating this? What meaning are you attaching to the situation that probably isn't true? And so our ability to flex and adapt our emotions, it's a very hard one, but a lot of people don't consider that that's part of our emotional intelligence. It's not just regulating the emotion that we're experiencing, but sometimes it's challenging that we're actually creating the right one.
Hmm. Can I add? This is on the spot here. Just as you're thinking about this again, I'm going back to being a parent, thinking about, like something that literally just happened yesterday. My son's, he's sometimes will be disrespectful as a teenager, and trying to guide him through that. So I took away his technology, and he was like, he had been really good though for the following day, and wanted his technology back. I said, nope, we're not gonna do that. Just let's like keep being good, and we'll talk through it. But here's where what you just said kind of ring a bell. He even told me, because we sat down and talked a little bit. He's like, I was feeling really angry, and he was like, because he gets sometimes very emotional, like he wants to show the anger. So I'm trying to think in that scenario when he's like he wants to let out his anger and he feels that. Is there a practice he could do? And maybe this is the same as like a leader in a company that might get angry. Is there a practice he could do to understand that he's being angry, but he doesn't have to go toward that anger? He can go another spot.
Mm. One of the most powerful habits, especially when we're with other people and we're trying to regulate ourselves, is actually a constructive expression of our emotion.
Okay.
So, learning to say the words, I'm creating anger right now. So, if I'm the kid and I'm talking to my parent, we're having a dialogue, and I can say to you, I'm creating anger right now, or even I'm experiencing anger right now. Ownership lives in those phrases.
Hmm. Okay.
And constructive expression of our emotions is our ability to communicate what we're feeling so that you can be with me, not just in the emotion experience, but with me as I navigate talking about my creation. So as a parent or a leader, how we want to communicate from the other side of the conversation is I'm noticing this behavior. Don't say like, I think you're angry. Don't name other people's emotions for them. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just notice the behavior. I'm observing you're yelling.
Mm-hmm.
What's up?
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to call attention to the behavior. And then if your son says, well, I'm creating anger, because he learns how to use that language, then you could say, tell me more. And now it's his opportunity to talk about what's contributing to his anger creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is where we use empathy in a tactical way, because we really need opportunity to understand what is going on for the other person, not so we can excuse the behavior, so we can just hold space for them to become self-aware. Because in the process of talking about it, their emotional climate will soften. It will
Mm.
soften as they
Yeah.
get to address and communicate with themselves what they're experiencing. You're just there to witness it. That's
Yeah.
all. And encourage, like, go on, what else? And what else? Like, we don't ask deep questions like, are you thinking about how you're, like, we can't furrow our eyebrows and get like right in and on
Yeah.
top of them. We have to sit back and just go, and what else? And what else? And tell me more. And just let them like get it all out through that process. We know if someone does that for us, our emotions are coming down the other side. We're not on the uphill or the or
Yeah.
standing on the cliff anymore. We're coming down. And then that's when you get the opportunity as the parent or the leader to be able to say, I understand your creation of anger. Your expression of it was inappropriate. Your expression of it
Mm.
was disrespectful, was a violation of how we show up for each other here. So while your emotion creation is valid, how you chose to express it was a violation. And so we address the violation.
Mm.
And that's when we could talk about what might be a better way for you next time to not violate this agreement we have in our household or this
Mm.
agreement we have in our workplace, while also being able to appropriately express your emotion creation.
Wow. I love that. That's super helpful. I'm going to use that ASAP.
But do
Um,
you
I,
see, Brian? Do you see, Brian, if we circle back to independence, do you see how you have to have a really strong skill set in independence to not take this like defensive position and want to lecture and like do all of, whether
yes.
we're a parent or a leader, we have to give a lot of space. So we have to be emotionally independent, grounded, firm, soft front, strong back. Soft front means I'm approachable. Soft
Mm-hmm.
front means I know how to use tactical empathy. Soft front means you can feel non judgment from me, which means you're going to step into the empathy space and want to communicate and talk through, which softens the emotional climate. Then we can address the violation or the behavior or the whatever it is we need to
Yeah.
address. But
Yeah.
we can't do it when someone is still emotionally jacked up. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. Well, and I even recognize, like, I'd like to think I'm probably independent
Mm-hmm.
in how you're defining it, or have gotten better, but I can even recognize sometimes, especially with, yeah, father son dynamic is very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, right?
Sure.
I can recognize where I probably am a little, not yeah, defensive might be a good word, but like where it's more like abrasive, really, of like, like going after versus sitting back and being like, all right, explain. I try to do that, but again, I know
Mm-hmm.
there's times where the emotional levels rise. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like assessing the waters and being able to say, like, do I need to come up in energy and expression to match what's happening because I need to get their attention? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we do have to come up in energy level, not match the emotion, but we have to come up in energy and meet them there to be able to be like, hey, what's happening right now needs to stop. And so we have weight to the words that we're using so we can get their attention and pull them into the dialogue we need to have.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes
Love it.
that's necessary to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
God, there's a lot to unpack here. It's really good conversation. What if we end on this? If anyone's listening in, what's one action they could take today? It doesn't matter how small it is, to get on the path to better EQ.
Starting from the ground up, just like when we build a house, we lay the foundation.
Mm.
And the stronger your foundation, the easier it is to access every other emotional intelligence skill. So at the foundation is emotional self-awareness. And when you master that particular skill, then empathy, assertiveness, independence, flexibility, stress tolerance, optimism, reality testing, these other skills it's easier for us to access these other skills if our foundation is really strong. And so the practice for emotional self-awareness is basically writing down every time you get emotionally triggered. And Joseph Stein, the EQ Edge, has this great exercise in the book. It's the ABCDEs of emotional intelligence. And basically what you're doing is you are tracking the activation. So A is activation. What was going on? And jot notes of like, I was at a family dinner. My mom said this thing.
Right.
And that was the activation scenario, right? And then actually the exercise jumps to column C,
Okay.
but we'll do them in order. So B is like writing down your beliefs. So being able to catch when this situation happened, family dinner, my mom said this thing, then what did you hear yourself think in your head? What were all of the thoughts and beliefs that went through your head in that situation? And there is a lot of stuff that goes through our head that sometimes we're not aware of at all. You got to write that stuff down. C is the consequences. Like consequences meaning how did you react? So what did you feel? What did you say? How did you behave? Those are all the consequences to the activation. And sometimes going from activation to consequences is easier. You go like, well, I got angry and then I yelled back and then I got up from the table and then I stormed away, right? And you're like, this is the consequences. And then I ended up binge eating ice cream that night to soothe myself, right? And then when you write down the consequences, you go like, well, what were all the thoughts in my head? We're like, well, when I got angry, it's because I thought this. How dare she?
Yeah.
When I yelled back, it's because I thought I'm going to show her. And it's really interesting how we can coordinate a consequence to thoughts that run through our head.
Right.
And then D is the debate, dispute, and discard. And so that's what we're doing is we're taking the B column and we're looking at all of the thoughts in our head and we're starting to debate, dispute, and discard the ones that we actually don't believe, that have no objective proof, that are just things we make up. We make up in our head. I paint my mom as the villain. I'm the victim. And so I think these types of things, but do I believe those things? No. Is there any proof for those things? No.
Yeah.
So we have to discard them. And what we're left with is sometimes just objectively what happened. My mother said these words. That's all that happened. None of the beliefs hold up.
Right.
So why am I giving all of this belief meaning to the words that she says? And once we discard that, now we're left in a position of going, ooh, what do I need to change so that I stay in my seat of power whenever my mother does those things? Same at work. When my boss does X, Y, and Z, when this peer does A, B, and C, and it triggers me, it's because I have all of this stuff that happens in me that tells me to respond or react this way.
Yeah.
And if I don't like the way that I'm showing up, then I got to figure out how I'm creating the way that I'm showing up, the way that I'm feeling. And the only way we figure that out is by sort of dissecting every time we get emotionally triggered and figuring out all of the ingredients and the recipe that we put it together. And then once we take it apart, we're like, oh, if I keep thinking this in my head, I'm going to keep responding like that. So sometimes we just remove thoughts and sometimes we correct our thinking. And from that position, we're going to see trends in how our thinking impacts how we're responding and how we're showing up and how we're controlled and giving away our power to other people.
Yeah.
Most people want to sit in their seat of power. They don't want to be emotionally reactive to other people. The act of just watching and paying attention and tracking it teaches you what you need to learn about yourself to start doing differently.
That's a great practice. I mean, again, I just think about even myself. I think at times I would do it mentally,
Yes.
but the act of writing it down, I think, really opens us. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people to write it down. I
Yeah,
mean,
the ego's going to want to go, don't put that down there because then you're going to have to acknowledge that you're
yes.
responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
there's power in responsibility, right? Because, I mean, there just is.
Yeah, it's why journaling's so important, just in
Hmm.
general, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Teresa, this was a lot of fun. But gosh, a lot of good insights here. Where can people say hello to you online? Where's the best spots?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm pretty active. 5 times a day I'm posting, 6 times a day I'm posting. I'm also on Instagram. So, it's Teresa Quinlan. They can find me there. I just use my name. I don't do anything funky with it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. Well,
Mhm.
thank you again so much. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, so much good insight throughout this. I had a blast. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, me too. Great questions. Thanks so much.